Hello and welcome to this pre-recorded feedback event for the June 2015 examination for NQF BTEC Levels 1 and 2 Hospitality Unit 1, Introduction to the Hospitality Industry. This presentation has been produced for you by the Chief Examiner for Unit 1, Claire Chester. To help you get the most out of this feedback, you may want to have the following documents handy, as we will refer to them during the session. Unit 9 Specification, to show how exam questions are derived from the unit specification. June 2015 Exam Question Paper, to help to quickly reference the questions during the training session. June 2015 Exam Mark Scheme, to provide the answers to the examination questions. June 2015 Lead Examiner's Report. The report reviews the learner's performance for each question on the exam paper and highlights questions that were well answered, those which were less well answered, and recommendations for the future delivery of the unit. Sample Assessment Materials, SAMs. These are helpful as they show the format for examination papers and provide further reference to question construction. Supporting documents are available on the website, on the same page as the video of this recorded feedback. Aims and Objectives. The aims and objectives are as follows. Receive feedback on the performance of learners. Consider questions where significant numbers of learners underperformed and possible reasons why. Discuss the lead examiner's report. Consider delivery strategies and share good practice. Address common issues. Find out about further support available. There are 4 activities in this session, which require you to consider learners' performance prior to being shown how marks are awarded. The activities will hopefully help to further improve delivery of the unit and suggest activities to prepare learners for the external assessment. Please open your Unit 9 specification. On this first page of the unit specification, you will see that the learning outcomes are listed. The unit consists of 2 learning aims. A. Know what makes a healthy lifestyle. B. Understand what the hospitality industry does to support and promote healthy lifestyles. As there are no assessment or grading criteria within this unit, unlike other units within the specification, the learning aims form the basis for external assessment. In Learning Aim A, learners will explore the concept of a healthy lifestyle, including what constitutes a healthy lifestyle, food and nutrition in relation to health, links between lifestyle and problems with health. In Learning Aim B, learners will explore what the hospitality industry does to support and promote healthy lifestyles, looking at trends and issues within the industry, the impact on products, services and operations as a result of these trends and issues, the constraints on the hospitality industry relating to trends and issues, and the responsibilities of the hospitality industry employers towards their employees. Within each learner aim, there are topics under which the unit content, or what needs to be learnt, is listed. A key message is that learners need to be taught the unit content in its entirety, and that the teaching of the unit content must be more than a superficial covering of the content. It is also recognized that some parts of the unit content are easier to teach, and as a result of this, other areas tend to get overlooked. The assessment includes a mixture of multiple choice and written questions. There is one extended writing, levels-based question worth 8 marks. The external assessment is a 1-hour 15-minute written exam, worth 50 marks. The next slides will explore questions within the exam paper, where learners did not perform as well as expected. Question 4 proved to be one of these questions. This question asked learners to give 2 minerals, other than iron, that are needed for a balanced diet. This question was not answered well by the majority of learners. The examples on the screen show one response scoring 1 mark and one response that was awarded no marks. Most learners were able to provide only one correct answer. This question was testing learners' knowledge of Topic A2, Food in Relation to Health, Micronutrients, Minerals. Question 6, testing Topic A4, Specific Dietary Requests, was not well answered by learners. Most learners were only able to give one correct response to this question. The majority of learners responding to this question were able to state that diabetics would request low sugar or sugar-free foods. The request associated with a vegan saw learners stating meat-free rather than no animal products, or giving examples of dishes, as shown in the response on screen. Many learners responding to question 10A restated the information in the question stem in their answers. The example shown on the screen is a typical example of this. This error is down to examination technique, and centres should encourage learners to take advantage of the extra reading time that is allowed for this paper to ensure they read the questions fully. Question 11A did not elicit many correct responses from learners. Few learners were able to gain the 2 possible marks for this question, with many learners giving reduced sick leave as their one response. Many learner responses were focused around providing staff with healthy meals and snacks. The example shown on the screen reflects these responses. This question was testing Topic B4, Responsibilities of Hospitality Industry Employers towards Employees, Benefits to the Business. Question 11B was also not well answered by learners, with most learners gaining one of the 2 marks available by citing less stress as their primary response. Learners were able to identify how exercise will benefit the staff, but not how it will improve staff efficiency for total foods. The explanation points given indicated that they did not fully understand the question. An example of this is shown on the screen. The next 10 slides will explore questions where learners did well. Learners responded well to this multiple choice, question 2. The question is testing learners' knowledge of fat-soluble vitamins, and the example shown on the screen is a typical example of a learner response. The example shown on the screen is a model answer for this question. This response gained the full 3 marks available for this question, testing Topic A4, Foods that can trigger allergies. Where learners did not do so well, they repeated nuts and wheat in their answers. Nuts and wheat are in the question stem, as you can see here. Improving on examination technique would improve the performance of these learners. Question 7 proved to be accessible to most learners, who were able to gain the full 2 marks for this question. Question 8A. This question was answered well, with the majority of learners being able to gain the 2 marks available, and correctly identify and state the name of the 2 largest groups, those being fruit and vegetables and carbohydrates, on the Eat Well plate. Question 8B was equally well answered, with most learners able to easily identify fats and sugars as the smallest food group on the Eat Well plate. The majority of learners were able to identify and give at least one of the 2 health problems caused by not getting enough rest and relaxation for question 9. The most popular answers related to heart disease and stress, as shown on the top of the screen. There were, however, incorrect answers given that did not relate to the question being asked. This would suggest a lack of knowledge of health problems caused by a lack of rest, or misreading the question. Question 10B proved to be accessible to a large number of learners. The example shown on the screen is a model answer for this question, and 4 marks were given for this response. Question 10B is the first question on the paper where the command verb changed from give, state, identify, and name to explain. In general, explain questions are awarded marks for the identification of a relevant point, followed by the explanation or justification of the identified point. In this instance, marks were awarded for identifying a constraint, 1 mark, and then providing an explanation of the impact of the constraint, 1 mark. Specifically, free range are more expensive, 1 mark. So, less profit is made, 1 mark. And a full menu may not be possible, 1 mark, as free-range products may not be available, 1 mark. Question 12a. This question was again answered well by some. However, in the majority of cases, learners were only able to identify and explain one way Pardee could adapt her menu to ensure that she uses her limited storage space efficiently. The most common answers related to reducing her menu to best-selling dishes only, and the dishes sharing the ingredients as detailed below. The response shown had valid identification points. However, there were no expansion points. Learners should be encouraged to practice writing linked responses as required by the command verb explain. Question 12b. This learner was able to gain 2 marks for identifying the dishes sharing ingredients and reducing the menu to best-selling dishes only. The expansion points, so people are still having the healthy lifestyle, and she may use the ones that are most popular, do not address the question, so no marks have been awarded. The ability to recognize the demands of a question with the explain command word is an important part of a learner's exam technique. Being able to give a point and provide a detailed, linked development of that point is something that candidates should be encouraged to practice. Question 13a and Question 13b. Most learners were able to correctly answer Question 13a and state the recommended maximum number of units of alcohol it is safe for a woman to drink per day, as shown in this example. Question 13b was generally well answered, but most learners were only able to provide identification points. The example shown was awarded 2 marks. For the learner's first response, 1 mark for identifying the risk to health, but no marks for the expansion. While the expansion point is essentially true, it does not relate to the question of how it will affect Greta's football career. For the learner's second response, 1 mark for identifying the possibility of alcohol dependence, but no marks for the expansion point, as this is what the question is asking. Question 14. The extended writing question. A discuss question indicates to learners that they need to apply their learning from the unit to the given scenario. Learners could possibly benefit from being reminded to reread the scenario prior to attempting this extended writing question, and make use of the reading time allowed on this paper. It may also be beneficial for some learners to note down key points they think will help to answer the question, prior to starting to write the answer. Marks are not specifically awarded for points learners write down. Learners can achieve maximum marks for writing an answer that covers only 1 or 2 points, which are well explained and demonstrate a thorough understanding of the unit content, and which are well applied to the given scenario. In preparing learners for the exam, it is worth teachers and learners looking at the levels-based marking grid in the mark scheme and discussing how marks are awarded for the given scenario. The majority of answers lacked application to the scenario, missing the key focus of the question, and were generic lists of points with no evaluation or analysis. This question did prove challenging to some learners. However, most learners were usually able to identify at least 2 valid ways of how the shilling could promote its healthier products to increase its profitability. A minority of learners were able to provide context and discussion around their identified reasons. Popular responses tended to focus on the advertising and marketing promotions of products. This was explored in detail, social media, posters and leaflets as detailed below, and in most cases there was little expansion for the reasons why promotions will increase profitability. Special offers and deals were also good responses, but again not explored further. This example is typical of a response that falls within the Level 1 mark band, as it is simply a list of actions Patrick could take. This response was awarded 2 marks. The ticks on the script only indicate where the learner has made a correct identification of an action Patrick can take. These ticks do not correspond to how marks are awarded for this question. Activity 1, Question 10. On the basis of what we have covered so far, the following 4 activities should hopefully reinforce the key points that have been made. The first activity is based on Question 10. Question 10 is testing Topic B2, Impacts on Products and Services, Menu Design, Labeling and Menu Terminology. Please read the answer provided. You will need to refer to the published mark scheme to undertake the activity. What marks would you award the learner? Please pause the presentation now until you are ready to continue. Activity 1, Question 10 Marking. This response earned the full 2 marks available. The learner has stated printing information on menus and giving customers information when they order. Activity 2, Question 11B. Question 11B is testing Topic B4, Responsibilities of Hospitality Industry Employers towards Employees, Benefits to the Business. Please pause the presentation now until you are ready to continue. Activity 2, Question 11B Marking. This response was awarded the full 2 marks, which reflects the mark scheme. Activity 3, Question 12B. Question 12B is testing Topic B2, Impact on Products, Services and Operations, Handling and Storing Supplies, including foods, fresh foods, locally sourced food. Please pause the presentation now until you are ready to continue. Activity 3, Question 12B Marking. A model response to this question that was awarded the full 4 marks for this question. Response 1 identifies ensuring that her dishes share raw ingredients, for 1 mark, so that she only needs to stock a limited number of ingredients as the justification, for the 2nd mark. For response 2, the learner identifies cutting down on secondary items, for 1 mark, leaving more room for other stock, for the 2nd mark. Activity 4, Question 14. The Levels-Based Mark Scheme. Throughout this presentation, you have looked at different types of question, with different action verbs applied to them, and with different levels of demand. This final activity is for a different style of question, which requires the learners to provide an extended written answer. This extended writing question has a levels-based approach to assessing and marking learners' responses. This type of question features on all BTEC Next Generation examination papers and is a key feature of Next Generation assessment methodology. Marks are not awarded specifically for points, but against the criteria specified in the levels-based marking grid in the mark scheme. The indicative content acts as a guide to markers, giving examples of possible responses. Learners may identify other relevant points and be credited. The level descriptors are included in the mark scheme, and it's these descriptors that are applied to the learner's response. In this case, the levels-based mark scheme applied the following descriptors. Level 1, 1 to 3 marks. A few key points identified, or 1 point described in some detail. The answer is likely to be in the form of a list. Points made will be superficial or generic, and not applied or directly linked to the situation in the question. Level 2, 4 to 6 marks. Some points identified, or a few key points described. The answer is unbalanced. Most points made will be relevant to the situation in the question, but the link will not always be clear. Level 3, 7 to 8 marks. Range of points described, or a few key points explained in depth. The majority of points made will be relevant, and there will be a clear link to the situation in the question. Using this levels-based marking grid in your mark scheme, decide what mark you think should be awarded for the following example of question 14. Please pause the presentation now until you are ready to continue. Activity 4, Question 14, Marking. Please note this question covers 2 slides. This question is testing topic B2, Promotion and Sales, Promotions and Special Offers to encourage take-up of healthy products and services. Please pause the presentation now until you are ready to continue. This was a well-presented and developed answer. As you can see from the screen, the learner has identified actions Patrick can take to promote healthy options, and has justified how these could be effective. The learner has identified that Patrick's healthy offer is unique to him and not available elsewhere, in order to tempt customers to the business. The learner has also identified that Patrick does not need to offer additional products and could promote existing high-profit items such as tea and coffee. Here, the learner has identified that promoting healthy products too much could possibly drive away existing customers, and that Patrick needs to ensure that his new market will generate sufficient income. Overall, a well-developed answer with a range of points described. The points are relevant, and there is a range of points described, or a few key points explained in depth. The majority of points made will be relevant, and there will be a clear link to the situation in the question. Preparing for future external assessment. Centres should ensure that they focus on ensuring that learners are familiar with the full range of topics contained within the unit specification, and that the full range of content from the unit specification is taught. Allow discussion on the unit content, so that teachers are aware of any preconceived ideas that may exist, so that these can be rectified well in advance. Support learners to improve exam techniques by including tuition in the run-up to the exam series and by encouraging them to read exam questions carefully. Carefully consider the focus of the question. Read the question stem carefully, noting the information already given, and knowing that this cannot gain marks if it is provided as an answer. Don't forget the lead examiner's report for this examination contains all the commentary used in this presentation and is a useful resource for helping you to understand the requirements of each question. Further help about results is available by following the link on the screen. Before we go, let's just recap the aims and objectives of the session. You will have received feedback on the performance of learners, considered questions where significant numbers of learners underperformed and possible reasons why, discussed the lead examiner's report, considered delivery strategies and shared good practice, addressed common issues, found out about further support available. Any questions, forward these to teachinghospitality@pearson.com.